I am actually very passionate about capacity development. I think the key to developed nations is developed people. If you don't develop people, then you cannot develop nations. So what I do three things that I think are critical to just driving the transformation agenda. Number one, I have a program called Authentic Man Program. So this program is a program where I've tried to define masculinity in an empowering way, so that people don't look for being their definition of manhood in drugs and in sex and in all these things that people look for masculinity in, but they can find their identity as men in God. When God gives a man identity, then he empowers that man to be a good leader, to be a good family man, and to be a solid anchor of society. So that's the first thing that I'm doing. And I've been able to just travel to a few nations, and also just within the Kenyan space, I've been able to travel to churches, to schools, just inspiring men to realize that when you become whole as a man, then you become an asset and not a liability in relationships. And in light of that, I've also done several books for men. In fact, I've done 4 books for men. I've done one book called Towards Authentic Manhood, just redefining what authentic masculinity is. Then I've done another one called The Hubby's Hub. The Hubby's Hub is a book for men that are married, and it talks about how men are supposed to love and lead their wives. The role of a man in a woman's life is to love and to lead. If those two things are not happening, then that man does not need a woman. The third book that I've done is called The Dive, and it's just challenging men to live bold and daring lives. When a man does not live life with the script of courage, then what happens is that he's not able to offer leadership. Have you ever realized, it's interesting that we never follow leaders that are cowardly. We always follow leaders that demonstrate courage and boldness. So that book is basically about inspiring men to live lives that are bold and courageous. Then I've done a 4th book called The Quest for Authentic Character. I feel that as a man, the biggest thing a man brings on the table of life is not even his competence, is the character that he has. So that book is basically designed to be able to inspire men to relook at their lives in the context of character and build the muscle of integrity within the fabric of their masculine soul, so that they can be leaders that lead well, and so that they can be men that model positive masculinity. The second thing that I'm doing in light of just trying to bring and drive the agenda of transformation is I also ran a program on relationships called Cultivating Authentic Relationships Experience. So that program is basically about challenging young people to have a biblical worldview on relationships. I actually feel that when young people learn to relate well, be it peer-to-peer, be it cross-gender, then they'll be empowered to become solid citizens that are able to bring transformation wherever they are. And I also realized that one of the biggest messes in our generation is young people getting into relationships without the tools and the skills that they need to relate well. Then the third thing that I'm also doing to drive the transformation agenda is I have a program that I run called Authentic Leadership Program. So that program is about rediscovering what leadership means and understanding how leaders are supposed to function. And my biggest goal or drive is to help people to redefine leadership as servanthood. I feel like when we stop looking at leadership as a position I have to an opportunity to serve my fellow human beings, then I think a lot of transformation will happen around Africa. A lot of the things that I'm doing were conceived out of problems or challenges that I myself went through. When I was a young teenager in class 7, class 8, Form 1, I realized that one of my biggest challenges was that I didn't know what a man looks like. I didn't know what a man is. My dad was a little bit too busy to sit down with me and navigate me towards what masculinity means. So just going through that problem made me realize, if I'm going through this problem, I wonder how many young men out there are going through the same problem. So as I navigated and found my own solutions, I actually realized if I have found something that works for me, they usually say that one of the best things you can do if you're a beggar and you find bread is to show other beggars where they can find the same bread. So I realized that the more I find these solutions, the more I'm able to be of service to others by sharing with them what I've found that has helped me. And in that, a vision for the men, for example, was conceived. Now, the vision for my inspiring young people towards relationships was also because I had a lot of challenges when I wanted to settle down. You know, the confusion of you have like 10 girls that you're interested in and you don't know which one is the right one. And then you are looking at one, she looks like she's the right one. And then you look at another one, she looks like she has the right fit in terms of the figure. And just looking at those things, I discovered it's not only me going through that phase of life. You know, so when I settled down in marriage, I actually looked at what are some of the things that I did right and what are some of the things that I did wrong, and how can I package that to be of help to another person. I usually feel like every genuine vision is conceived when you go through a problem and you find a solution, and not only do you find a solution to benefit you, but you find a way to make that solution benefit another person. So that is how my conversation about my vision for men and my vision for relationships was born. Now, my vision for leadership development started when I started working. When I finished college, I got a job with the government, and I started working in the government, and I realized that a lot of bosses in the workspace, they have the position, but they don't know how to deal with people. They don't know how to challenge people to grow in a workplace environment, for example. And I began to realize a lot of people get positions, but they don't know what to do with those positions. And I discovered, by the way, what if we came up with a philosophy of leadership, showing people when you become a leader, or when you get a position, these are some of the things you need to do so that the people under you are not slaves that you're trying to boss around, but they are human beings that you empower to a higher level of living. And so just started studying on leadership, looking at models of leadership, people who had a positive impact on society as leaders, and that is how that vision developed. So visions are only developed solidly when we look at the problems around us. We begin to look at solutions to those problems. And when we find those solutions, we don't become selfish and keep them to ourselves, but we find a way of passing on those solutions to other people. I think that is the journey of vision for every person. And I know it plays out differently for different people, but I feel like being a student of the problems around you and being a person who initiates steps towards bringing out solutions makes you a visionary in your own right. So that's how my journey of vision was. I'll say something that I learned many years ago. You can either choose to live your life surviving, or you can choose to live your life making a difference. Now, there's a difference between people who live life surviving and people who live to make a difference. When you live life surviving, you live it for yourself. It's about you. It's about getting money. It's about getting cars and houses and all those things. But when you live life making a difference, you're actually saying, I want my life to mean something for somebody else. And when you begin to live life for a bigger reason than you, then you not only become a leader, but you become an inspiration around you. Look at, for example, at somebody like Wangari Maathai. In fact, when I walked into this compound, she's the first person that I thought about, because anytime I see trees, I think about, wow, there's somebody who actually thought about conserving the environment. They were not caught up in their own career pursuits, and nothing wrong with pursuing careers, but looking at how do I become a difference maker in the society. Mike Murdoch said something that I've never forgotten many years ago. He said, you will only be remembered for two reasons: the problems you created or the problems you solved. Now, there are many people who will go through life not being a solution to another, and their name will quickly fade out as quickly as they came. But there are people who will live and say, how can I be a solution to my generation? And those are the people that make a mark that cannot be erased. And one of my challenges to young people is, look, don't live being conceived by your own small pursuits that are centered on your ego. Think about, how can I live my life in such a way that when people hear my name, they know this guy, when he passed through my life, they made a difference in my life. And when you live life to make a difference, guess what happens? You become a positive influence, and you leave your name carved on the sands of time. And I think that's the highest use of life. I think my most profound experiences have been when I do events for men and I hear a man come and tell me, by the way, you know what? Whatever you shared with us has changed my life. My life is on a new trajectory now. I think those are my most inspiring experiences. I'll give you an example. So one time I went to share in a men's forum, and I was talking about authentic manhood and integrity and dignity and all those things that go with being a real man. And I remember there's this guy who came to me after the meeting and told me, you know what? I had another woman besides my wife that I was renting a house for somewhere. And because of what you've shared, I'm going to stop having that relationship with that extramarital relationship or affair with that woman. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to concentrate on my wife and on my family. And I'm going to try and become a man of integrity. And I said, you know what? Even with every struggle that I've gone through to try and build my vision, just hearing that one story makes it gives me a reason to keep engaging and to keep going on. And I remember there's another guy also that I shared in a forum, and this guy had been addicted to pornography for a long time. And I remember him saying, you know what you've shared is so profound that I'm inspired to go back and work on just developing morality and sexual purity in my life. And when I hear stories like those, I mean, it's amazing how they inspire me to continue going and to continue pursuing my vision. One of my lowest stories about my life is I used to run and I still run a forum on relationships every once in a while. And I remember it was on a Sunday afternoon and I had these young people packed in a hall, and there was one guy who was dating one young girl in that hall. And I think this guy was sort of like not the right kind of a guy for this young girl. And he came into that meeting, and in the middle of me sharing in that meeting, he stood up and he started coming to the front and he sort of like said, you know what, I came here with an intention of rubbishing this meeting and creating chaos, but somehow God just stopped me when I was seated on that chair. And I was like scared off my tracks because I was wondering, you know, what if this guy had done something bad to me, or he had hit me, or something bad had happened, you know? And just looking at some of those things that happened to try and put fear inside you. And one of the things that I also want to share with people is, look, anytime you pursue a vision, there will be things that will come to try to scare you out of your vision. Now, you will never fulfill your vision if you're easily scared by those things that come to intimidate you. And I remember just talking to that guy after that meeting and telling him, you know what? I do what I do because I love helping young people, not because I'm trying to break your relationship with your girlfriend or anything like that. I am trying to help young people to do their relationships right. So, of course, there have been struggles. There have been times I've not had enough resources to finance those meetings. There are times I have not been able to, you know, I had planned a meeting and then the turnouts were not as good as I expected. So there were those ups and downs. But when I hear the stories, the stories of transformation, the stories of somebody changing their lives because of something I shared, it inspires me to keep going. And I think every vision has the highs and lows, but if you focus on the highs, then you will overcome all the lows. What I'd like to say, even as we bring this interview into a close, is look for something you're passionate about and find a way to make a difference with your passion. Don't use your passion just to make a living. Use your passion to make a difference. If you can write, write. If you can sing, sing. If you can talk to people, talk to people. But whatever you're passionate about, don't wait for somebody to give you permission to begin doing it. And don't wait for it to give you money for you to do it. Doing something for money is the lowest reason for doing it. But find a higher reason for doing what you're doing. And the highest reason for doing what you're doing should be, how does it drive the agenda for transformation? There are people who will go through life and we will only remember them for the day they were born and the day they died. But there are people who go through life and they do so much positive impact that even by the time they die, we don't even mourn their death. We celebrate their lives because of the difference they've made. So that's why I'm saying, find something you're passionate about and get busy making a difference. And don't wait to be old to make a difference. By the time you're old, you're too worn out to make a difference. If you're young, use the energy that you have to make a difference and make somebody's life better. And guess what? If you put a smile on somebody's face, then even if you don't get a coin for it, your life will have counted for something positive. So live positively, live purposefully, and live life for transformation. And that will be something worth your life.